Okay, it's setting up for over here. I've never done this before, so this is kind of fun. All right, can y'all still hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah? I saw one nod finally. Okay.
Yes.
I'm switching back and forth. I'm just going to stay on this channel instead of going back and forth. So let me record on this side. And thank you, Miss Sue. All right. My name is Christy Mattoon, and this is Mind Rewire. I have not gone live on YouTube in forever, and I hardly ever post anything anymore. So I apologize to the people who had followed me for years, but I think we might be back in action here, thanks to a talk I had with a young lady the other day who pretty much set my fire back on fire. I'm not sure what happened there, but gave me a little umph in my step. So that was pretty awesome. So we're going to jump right into this. What we are talking about is forgiveness. And I'm going to give you the end of the story first, and then we're going to start over. If you understand what forgiveness is, and everybody has their own definition of forgiveness, my understanding of forgiveness forever was that you had to forgive somebody for something they did to you and then let it go. And in the Christian world, you said a prayer and you did a thing, and then it came back and it bit you in the butt again. It just kind of was a continuous issue. That was my experience with forgiveness. So we're going to look at it from a different light. And the end of the story is this: when forgiveness has purified the mind and the heart and the emotional field of your own beingness, you will discover that you exist only to extend love. That's the end of the story. So keep that in mind, and I'll repeat that again once we get back that direction. So we're going to get coherent real quick first. I'm going to just take you through a real quick coherence process and get into an alpha brainwave state. So while you're listening to this, you can listen with a little more ease, right? And so the understanding, if you are coherent listening from your heart space, your understanding will be easier, okay? So everybody's taking a few deep breaths, big inhales, nice long deep exhales. Close your eyes if you need to close your eyes. As you inhale, you're expanding your rib cage, really pull that spine nice and straight. And then as you exhale, you're just releasing oxygen, the tension through your body. Exhales need to be longer than your inhales. When you're ready, you can inhale again. Expand the rib cage, really open that up, bring the oxygen all the way to the top of your head. And as you exhale, releasing all the oxygen and energy and tension back down through the system. And then we're going to do that one more time. Big inhale. Straighten your spine. Nice long deep exhale. And as you're exhaling, I want you to put your hands over your heart space. And whether your eyes are opened or closed, it doesn't matter. I want you to gently roll your eyes just a little bit above the horizon line. And then just breathe. And we're going to sit here for about a minute. And what we're doing is not only putting you into an alpha brainwave state, you're allowing yourself to get coherent in your heart, moving your awareness into your heart space, causes interaction with the brain, creates a whole brain state. You might feel sensation in your heart, gratitude, peace, love, whatever label you put to it. That is your spirit giving you that sensation, giving you that feeling. And then when you're ready, I want you to open your eyes, but try and stay in that feeling. I want to stay in this higher vibration in our heart space. Now I want you to think about what forgiveness means to you. If you want to type it in the chat box, feel free to do that. What is forgiveness? Not how do you do it, but what is it? And your definition may have been similar to mine, and that's fine. What is forgiveness to you? It is an essential part of healing. No matter what we're doing, it's an essential part of healing. How do you define it? Sherry says, letting go and letting the divine in. Sue says, I taught a similar definition to mine. Yeah, I like letting go and letting the divine in. Our church forgot that part. It's okay to laugh about it. It's fine. Charles says, letting go of the resentment, negative feeling toward a certain incident or person, very specific. Let go, let God. Very good. So all those things are correct in their form. That is what we were taught. So from that kind of same idea, years ago when I first started doing this work, what I understood in doing forgiveness work was literally in its origin, say a prayer, I forgive that person, I hope they forgive me. If something happens, I don't even know. And it never worked out. That never did anything for me. It never changed the way I felt. It never changed the mind or changed the way I thought about things. Can I repeat, what is forgiveness to you? My understanding of forgiveness was basically that something happened, somebody caused something that happened in my life that would cause stress to me. And then I had to let go of that, basically. You had to forgive them and let it go. And that's what forgiveness was supposed to be. Christopher says releasing resistance. Okay, so kind of hold on to all of that for just a second. So the original way, after I figured out what I had been taught in Sunday school didn't work, that I started doing forgiveness work, I actually originally heard in a Silva method course that I had taken. And if you know what the Silva method is, it's kind of age-old, ancient energy method, an energy method. And so he talked about this. And then I again heard it through the owner, Vishen Lakiani. I can never say his last name, bless his heart, from the Mind Valley Center. So he's the creator of Mind Valley. And I heard it again through him, and then later found out he had taken the Silva course. So I was like, oh, there you go. So the idea was to forgive the other person was get into an alpha state. And what he had figured out, because they were running tests and hooking themselves up to machines and being inside of these crazy egg-shaped things that they were using, that if you were in an alpha state, you were automatically in a state of forgiveness. That alpha state is like the resonation of forgiveness. So what they would say was, forgive the other person, forgive yourself. Sit in that alpha state, sit in that brainwave state. And then ask from inside yourself, what on earth happened to the person who caused my issue that they would treat people like this? And what it did was give you clarity, right? So you had to sit and listen and just kind of pay attention, right? Be curious, pay attention. And it would give you clarity on what happened to cause them to treat people the way they did. Now, what St. Germaine just pointed out to me was that doesn't really work too well. Like it'll clear it for a while, but this will come back on you. Because if I'm pointing my finger at somebody and saying, what on earth happened to you that would cause you to treat me the way you treat me? I'm not taking 100% authority. I'm not taking 100% responsibility over whatever that issue was. Right? So I'm pointing back at them going, what happened to you? And it gave me great clarity every time I did it. Honestly, it gave a lot of people that I walked through it great clarity. It gave them some sense of relief and release and all kinds of things. There was all kinds of good stuff that came from it. But St. Germaine is saying in this period of time, right now, there is more work to be done. So if you're asking and pointing your finger at the other person about my woes, it's my issue, right? I have to take full responsibility. So asking what happened to them to cause them to treat me the way they did is just, it's not going to get you very far. But so you would do that, you would get your clarity, and then you would forgive yourself for allowing that issue or that person to affect you throughout your life. Does that make sense? Right? So that was kind of how that worked. So that's why I did that for a long time, and I worked people through that for a long time, and it always helped to some degree, like I said. But for me, something was always missing. You know, you always feel that weird little buzz. This is one of those, and once you get this, it will probably take some of that buzz away. So what this did, what understanding this next step did, took me to a different level of consciousness, right? So if you can get this, I think you're going to really enjoy it. So the new idea, and I asked the question again, what is forgiveness? So look back at all the answers that we just threw up there. Here's what St. Germaine said. St. Germaine said, it means the act of choosing to release another from the perceptions you have been projecting upon them. The projections and judgments. Forgiveness means the act of choosing to release another from the perceptions and judgments you have been, or perceptions and judgments you have been projecting on them. It just makes me go, oh man, okay. Because now the finger's pointing back at me. Right? It's my judgment, it's my projection, it's my perception, right? So think about that for a second. Even just hearing that, what does it make you think? Where does it put you? Feel free to open your microphones if you want to. Or type in the chat box. So this whole concept, you are creating the issue in itself. Yes, you are. And we do, right? We are the creator of everything in our outer world. So if that vibration is somehow in your outer world and it has been drawn to you through your own vibration, and now you're judging that person for coming to you and showing you, hey, if you fix this, you're going to get another level up on the notch of consciousness. And you go, bam, and you start judging it and causing more issues than you need to with it. I just did this to my brother not too long ago, like horrifying. And I was sitting here going, wow. The only reason he's in my life is because he is God, showing me what I need to work on. And St. Germaine was like, that's it. Every time a person is next to you, they are God coming to you to say, here, work on this. And you judge them, you project on them, you create all your own nonsense to it. Tell your little stories, right? That's where in my head, like, oh, let me tell another story about this. Christopher's saying, if you visualize having an issue with another person, it will happen as you saw it. Many times, yeah, you can force these things to happen for sure. But it can also just happen by by vibration, something that's been caught in your system and you haven't quite worked it out. If you're aware, right? If you're awake to it. So this is all about releasing your judgments. Forgiveness is about releasing your judgments.
But it's kind of interesting in the beginning.
Forgiveness is about releasing your judgments. Let me go backwards for just 1 second. Also, when you judge and project on another person, I was thinking about this. You're sending waves of negativity in emotion form to them, right? Because we're all connected. So the second I think about somebody, I'm sending information through the field. And if it's a judgment or some kind of negative thought about what just happened or what happened years ago or whatever it is, I'm sending them, oh, let me turn this off. I am sending them that negative information through the field. I mean, it's almost like cursing somebody. You don't even realize you're doing it, right? And we think of judgment as like when you're judging somebody on a really high level and, you know, you're either in a courtroom and it's judging and that's a whole different ball game, or the way the media has personified judgment, like for us, right, is like white against black and, you know, different things like that, where you're stuck in those kind of judgments. But it can be simple little things. Every little tiny thing you look at and go, you know, whatever it is. With my brother, it was the way he was handling my mother's situation. And I judged everything he came out with. Every little, instead of staying neutral, right? So that becomes what you have to figure out how to do is, how do I stay neutral? So, and for that person, right, now let's talk about guilt and shame. How is guilt and shame created? How is guilt and shame, guilt or shame created? Do you know? Somebody probably judged you. You were shamed or you were guilted. You created a response to it. I know a lot of times I will be judged by a family member and I get the burden of guilt or I get the burden of shame. And then I judge them back and I send it right back to them. We ping pong that stuff back and forth. It's the funnest game in the world. Not. Ping pong. Ping pong is the funnest game in the world. All right. So that's how guilt is built in to the system, guilt or shame, is through judgment, through projecting on people, through your perceptions of issues or situations that happen. So John, I just want to make sure I clarify this. So if I have a judgment on somebody or something, the message is sent in vibrational form. They receive the message, they get guilty or shamed or, you know, whatever they end up feeling from it. And then they send information back. And then I get guilted and shamed, right? Or whatever, what else could possibly come up. So the question is, how do you stop it? How do you stop doing this? And the answer is literally, you have to find a way to remain neutral. And that's what St. Germaine showed me. To every situation, if you can take a neutral state or a state of peace, right? Peace, neutrality is the level of peace. So if I stay in my heart space and something happens and I just stay there, I'm going to stay at peace to it, to that situation. And then I don't judge. I don't judge the situation. I don't judge the person. I don't judge the issue, right? None of those things. Does that make sense? So we have to stay neutral to it. So staying coherent is part of it. Staying in your heart space. Sue says, or blamed. Yes, blamed also. That's a good one to add to it. Have you ever heard the phrase, I think it's an old scripture, thou shalt not judge, right? Thou shalt not judge. I don't know if that's a 10th commandment or not, but St. Germaine brought it up. And he said, if I am not judging, I am not creating negative interaction vibrationally. If I am not judging, I am not creating negative interaction vibrationally. Take a deep breath. That one blew me away because everything that comes by me, I am pretty sure I judge it somehow. And I have caught myself ever since this showed up. I have caught myself more and more and more, just little, what we would think of as no big deal. Like it just comes out of your mouth, whatever it is. And it's like, oh, that was a judgment. Oh no, no more of this, no more of this. Okay, any questions, thoughts, or anything so far? Is everybody tracking with me okay?
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Nobody? And you can, there's a little reaction box down here somewhere. You can always do the hand raise or something if you do have, that way I'll know that you've got something you want to say.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Okay, Charles, I see you. I see your hand. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Unmute? What is the opposite of judging? Forgiveness. Literally, that's one of the things he told me. The opposite of forgiveness is judging.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Not watching Judge Judy show.
Christy, can you hear Charles?
Can you hear me?
You're making jokes. Awilda has a sense of humor.
I don't think she can hear us.
Charles, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Can you get you got to unmute.
Because we are unmuted, but she's not hearing us.
No, I couldn't hear you.
Can you hear
No.
me? Hello?
Charles, I can
Christy?
hear you.
I can hear you too, Charles.
I
Can you
was
hear
hearing
me?
Awilda and Christopher earlier. Did somebody else talk?
Somebody let Christy know we can all hear each other.
Oh, wait, I do know why. Hang on.
Charles, I can hear you.
I can hear you too, Charles. I was hearing.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Somebody let Christy know we can all hear.
Oh, wait.
Hang on.
Okay. Yeah. So in regarding to forgiveness, so let's say when somebody scam you, right, intentionally scam you, and well, first of all, how can you forgive that person? I mean, they purposely did it to defraud you. But the other challenge is forgiving yourself for, feeling stupid that you got scammed. So there's two different issues, right? What is your take on that?
Let me walk you through the process first and see what it does for you.
Okay.
Let's get that far through it, because if you're, whatever the judgment was in the situation or your perception or your projection of the situation, it always brings it back here.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So let's get through the process and then maybe that will help.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm curious, as with what you've been discovering, because I grew up in a family similar to what yours did, and there was lots of that judgment and ping-ponging, and so, and I can catch myself as well. It's that I fall into judgment really easily. So what I'm wondering is not only stopping it, but have you discovered a way to get rid of the energy, the negative vibe and energy that is built up in your life and the negative effects because of all that stuff?
Yes. It seems to do all of that. I don't know that, I mean, at some point, right, because we're connected in its energy, it has to also hit the other person. Right? I have not gotten a call from my brother yet. And I don't even know if I expect one. I'm doing this because I'm clearing my own system so that I can exist only to extend love, right? If that's the end goal, how do I get there? It's up to them to figure their part of it out. But I think it does, what I'm about to show you does take care of what you're talking about. Okay, anybody else? Okay. Okay. So let me kind of repeat this all one more time. If forgiveness means to choose to release another from the perceptions or judgments you have projected on them, then forgiveness becomes an act of forgiving oneself of one's own projections and judgments. Okay. As you forgive your own judgments, you will start to feel, and it's a deeper sense of peace. I can't even describe it. And what happens, so there's another scripture that says, you're supposed to forgive. I think they asked Yeshua, how many times should we forgive? And he told them 70 times, 7 times. And so we do the math. And of course, it was not what it meant. It was a figurative way of saying, you don't really stop doing that. You don't ever stop forgiving, right? Because there's layers of it. And what we're doing is peeling back these layers. Can I repeat? Yes. If forgiveness means to choose to release another from the perceptions or judgments you have been projecting on them, then forgiveness becomes an act of forgiving oneself of one's own projections and judgments and perceptions, right? Forgiveness is literally an act of forgiving yourself for doing those things. So 70 times 7 is a figurative way of saying layers of the onion. You're literally peeling back layer after layer. What I understood from this was every time you do what I'm about to show you, what I was shown, every time you do this, you take yourself deeper into the purity of your own consciousness. Because without judgment, without your false perceptions, without your projecting things, what are you? Now, what are you? Who do you become? Right? Have you all heard of the veil? Right? They're saying the veil's getting thinner. Do you know what the veil is? This rocked my world. Do you know what the veil is?
I think it's our brain. It's a membrane on our brain, our own thought patterns
Yeah,
of the
that's
veil.
definitely part of it. Anybody else? That was a better answer than I've had my whole life, by the way.
Christy, it's been called the veil of forgetfulness.
It's been called that also.
Okay. I don't know what it is then.
Yeah. Well, keep going. That's a good answer. And I'll tell you why, because that makes sense now that you said that, actually. It just clicked in my head. So the veil, as it gets lifted, right, you start to see how you've been creating, coloring, and affecting all of your relationships, all of your manifesting. Everything in your outer world is part of your perceptions and your judgments. Your perceptions and judgments are the veil, and they keep your inner self cloaked from you. It's like a shroud that you put over yourself. Every time you judge somebody, there's another layer to the veil put on you. So you're literally taking off layers of the veil, which is why it gets thinner, right? How it interacts with your brain, I actually think it's a metaphor for your neuroplastic. I think it was a metaphor for your neuroplastic, this idea of this veil shrouding, and it literally in your heart, we've piled up so much junk on top of our own spirit, people can't even get to themselves, right? It's hard to find yourself until you start doing all this spiritual work. So on the veil, this is some of the stuff that St Germaine gave me. The veil is getting thinner, right? So you may have heard this, but understand the veil is not outside of you, it is inside of you, right? So I always had the perception that, like they talked about the veil tearing in the temple. So it was like a curtain or something and the veil tore. So I always had this idea that it was like some kind of like curtainy kind of thing somewhere out here that like, I don't know, it was covered the earth or something. I never really understood it. But what I was told is that it's in you, and by your perception of the outer world and inner world, you only create the veils that cover up the truth of who you are. By your perceptions, by your judging, you are just covering up your own spirit, basically. So you're hiding yourself from yourself. The truth that is true about you is always. That one I had to stop and look at for a second. The truth that is true about you is true always. So no matter how much of a veil or how much junk you pile up on top of yourself, that truth is going to still be there. So every time you correct something from your thoughts, perceptions, or judgments, you are thinning the veil.
Oh, yeah. And then, okay, I know.
You are thinning the veil. So it's all about how much of this veil can you undo. So remember the end game. The end game is when forgiveness has purified the mind and the heart and the emotional field of your own beingness, you will discover that you exist only to extend love. That will be kind of the litmus test. When that's all I do is extend love, that's a hard sell for me most days, right? Okay. So the veil could be a metaphor for the neuroplastic. That's what I was thinking. When the veil was torn in the temple, so there's a story, and I think it's in the Old Bible. They were building, it may have been Solomon's temple or the Holy Temple or one of those kind of things, but there was a veil and it was torn. So I forget what exactly was going on in the story, but I had this thought that when that tore, somebody was waking up. Somebody had this electrifying moment that they were just like, oh, and it tore their veil. So I think it was particular to whoever that story was about. Okay. Veil, ward off evil spirits. Not sure about that. Makes me think what your subconscious mind absorbs. Yes, directly related to the subconscious. Okay. So how to start correcting. Here's what I was shown with this understanding. Get coherent always in everything you do. Be coherent first. If you're coherent first, everything, first of all, is easier, and you're already setting yourself up for success. So you're not fighting through all the lower level emotions that we tend to get caught up in, right? So get coherent first, heart, brain, and gut. It was said you can forgive the person or the issue, right? And that's kind of what we were taught to do originally, was to forgive the person or the issue and then just let it go. So you can do that because it's not going to hurt anything. And then step 3 is forgive yourself for judging and creating perceptions and judgments about whatever the thing was. So you're going to forgive yourself for judging and creating perceptions about whatever the issue was, or even the person. And I'm going to give you direct words in just a second for that. All right. And then the next step was to stay in that space. Hang on just 1 second, Suze. Stay in that space, breathing, until it all becomes neutral. So you're just neutralizing. And I'll give you some deeper instruction here in just a second. All right, go ahead, Suze.
Yeah, so this is really interesting that we're having this discussion now, because just like a day or so ago, I had a conversation with my younger sister, the one that, of course, we're doing the ping pong thing. And it's interesting, the actual words that got said at some point was, because she was unloading on me. And finally, I just had to tell her, I said, look, I am not going to judge you or any of your stuff. And then you are also not going to judge me. And everything just went quiet. Once I had to say it a few times, but when it finally sunk in, I was like, no, we're not going to judge. So that was helpful. But the other thing too, that struck me because I was talking to my spirit about this morning about forgiveness. And for me, I have probably an issue with the word forgiveness. And spirit was telling me that it's like, if you're in your seat of consciousness and you're in that place, and there is no judgment there, because that's an idea, so that you're in truth, right? At that moment when you're in your seat, you're in truth. That is true. Anything else that's not that is a lie, right? It's a lie. And so as long as you're in truth and you're staying in truth, then, you know, a judgment or anything else, it's a belief in a lie.
Yes, I would agree with that,
Belief
100%.
in a lie. And so it's like, so the way I've been approaching this, I guess I've been doing it and didn't know I was doing it, is I just kept telling my other sister, I said, no more lies, no more. And the first person I had to start with was myself. I am not going to lie to myself anymore. I don't care what it is. And so I have also, we've been calling the younger one on the carpet when she tells something that's not true. I'm like, Michelle, that's not true. But I can't tell her that from a place, like it has to be said to her from the place of consciousness for it to stick. If I don't do it that way, I end up in the ping pong match.
Yeah,
Right. So,
I would bet if you're, you know, consciousness or coherent, if you're in a situation where everything is giving the same information, and if you could get your sister to do that, it would probably make it all easier. Most families don't have the benefit of communication that you guys have. Most families can't do, especially siblings, don't do what you guys do, which is, I mean, it's very cool for you. And it's very interesting to listen in on how you guys deal with each other, because my siblings never would do that. They would never allow those conversations. And then I judge them.
yeah, well, so, but I love the idea of truth, because
Yeah.
the other thing I just wanted to mention was what I'm always looking for, and it helps me to stay present and to stay in my awareness and in that consciousness, is to constantly be asking myself, is that true? So sometimes it's just me by myself and something will come into my awareness and I'm like, wait a minute, is that true or not?
Yeah.
And so it stops me from judging myself. And then when I'm dealing with other people, I'm sitting there going, and I was like going, well, wait a minute. Is that true? Do you know, before I go to attack them or blame this, like, wait a minute, do you know what you're fixing to say? Do you know that is to be true? Totally
Yes.
true.
Yep.
And it forces you back into the awareness. So I like the idea of using the word truth a lot rather than telling myself, forgive myself. And part of this was because the youngest one for years now has been saying that, you know, we need to forgive her. We need to forgive her. And I went down that rabbit hole and been trying, it doesn't, you know.
I think it's because we were taught it wrong. Right.
Yeah.
So it turned into this horrible, I don't know, it just caused the way we were taught forgiveness. So your word association has an emotional component to it. But if you can just take it apart and do exactly what you did, turn it into, is this truth? Like you've got the perfect answer. I wouldn't stray from it. Because it does bring you straight back into the sense of self. So yeah, you just now finished my class. Okay, we'll see y'all later. Actually, I'm going to give you what St. Germaine gave me as far as how to, especially if it's an old situation that keeps coming back to haunt you. Different people perceive different levels of truth. Yes, they can. All the time. Watch the news. It's interesting how much that is, right? Everybody's perception is different. And if you saw something, this is what I find with my siblings. If you saw something, and because of our ages, the age differences, from a different standpoint or a different period of time, then another sibling saw it or another person saw it, you have a different perception of what that truth is. So the truth about my mother to my oldest brother was that she was a great mom. I never knew that person. My perception of her is anything but that. Right? So, and just because of where we stood in line and stood in time. Yes, thank you for sharing, for sure. So perception of truth, then truth to me. Perception is different than truth. Yeah. The truth is truth. Truth is truth always. Truth is true always. Perception varies. Perception definitely varies. Judgment will vary. So it all can change on that. So let me go through and give you the method that I was given. So we have something to play with here. Did I hear somebody pop in? No.
Yeah, it was me. I was just gonna say, for me, whenever I catch myself in judgment, I find it, I call it the could have, would have, should have. If you think it should have been a way, or it could have been a way, or it would have been some way, you're putting your judgment on it, right? Saying that in essence, you're source creator, you're the father, and you know how, the way that it should have been, you know. So it's a good catch, a good way to quickly, as opposed to saying judgment, because sometimes we don't perceive it as judging because we think that we're right, you know. So
yeah,
hopefully that helps.
All right, very good. All right, so here's what I was shown to do is get coherent. And then you're going to think of the person or the issue that you're trying to forgive, right? That you're trying to find truth in, perhaps. And as you're thinking of that, we're going to use the idea of the ladder of awareness, but literally only having to take it to your heart. It's very interesting. So there is a law that St. Germaine talks about that is the law of forgiveness, right? And he says literally just activate the law of forgiveness. So you literally just say, I'm activating the law of forgiveness. And then be coherent. Think about the person that you're having the issue with, or the issue that's causing you this trouble that you need to forgive. And then take it from your brain down to your heart. So we're going to move the issue from the brain down to the heart. Surround it with violet light. That seems to be the color of St. Germaine. I did see different issues being surrounded with white light. I saw one issue in particular being surrounded with gold light, and that involved the death of a person. And that was surrounded in gold light. So see all these different things, whatever color shows up, just surround them in light, in a bubble of light. And then I don't know how to describe this, but what happened to me was I'm putting it in the center of my heart, effectively giving it to my spirit to handle. And the words that I said were, I forgive myself for all judgments I hold against, and then whatever the person or the issue is. I forgive myself of all judgments. I'm letting all those judgments go. And then I saw a hole literally open up inside my heart space, and all of it got sucked into this hole. It was very dramatic. With my brother, it was funny because we were talking as this was going on, and like in this space talking. And I literally saw him like start going down the hole, and he's like, hey, wait a minute. Stop, wait a minute. And I'm like, nope, judgment's gone. Judgment's gone. I'm literally just taking away all the judgments from whatever the issue is. I judge it no longer. And it stopped something. It stopped a resonance inside of me that I can't quite describe. It was the most amazing thing I think I've ever felt before. It was so freeing and I felt a lot of amazing things. We've done a lot of cool stuff in here, but that one just like, I was like, wow. Because the judgments were literally gone. My heart transduced them. My heart turned them into, right, that love. That's what we're trying to get to, as a place where we exist only to extend love. Right? I'm pretty sure I could walk up to him this point and only extend love no matter what he did, or no matter what he does futuristically. Right? So at the end, I did have a prayer. At the end, what went through my mind was, I am presence, protect others from my words, judgments, and from my words, judgments, and projections. I am presence, project others from my words, judgments, and projections. I am grateful for your presence. So now I'm talking to the I am presence. I am grateful for your presence, and I fill myself with energy and receive your love. Right? So I was being receptive of that love. I am presence. Protect me from my words, judgments, and projections. I am the presence that unfolds the mysteries of the inner world and reveals all truth, love, and beauty. So moving these judgments reveals truth. It opens you up to truth. So you could come at it, I think, from either direction, the way Suzanne was talking about it, or doing this kind of work. And it ended pretty much any stress or tension that I had. And I literally sit there, since I've gotten this information, I sit probably 30 minutes every day just doing forgiveness work. And whatever comes next, I'll start with whatever the biggest thing is, and then I go to what's next, and then what's next, and then what's next. And what's next at some point will be you. Can you forgive yourself of all the judgments you've placed on yourself? That was a big one. That was a big one for me. Any questions, thoughts, or concerns? Or other ideas? So we're going to play with this for a second. I want you to pick a person or an issue. And we're going to go through this and use the words and use the ladder of awareness, use the heart space. So pick a person, pick an issue. Take a few deep breaths. Get back into your heart space. I want you to think about the person or the issue for just a second. Don't fall into it. Don't let it sweep you away. Just be open and curious. From your heart space, from your divine self, you're thinking about the issue. You stay here for just a little bit. And then when you're ready, move that whole process, move the whole issue, the person, everything down into the center of your heart space. And then once that's inside your heart, can I take my anger at God? Absolutely. Absolutely. Breathe while you're doing this. Just drop it in the center of your heart and watch what happens. And then I say the words, I'll forgive my brother, right? I forgive you. I ask forgiveness from them, for forgiveness from them, even if they're not there listening to me or talking to me. And then the most important part is literally, I forgive myself for all judgments I hold against you. I forgive myself for all judgments I hold against you. And then when that feels clear, pick something else. And I just go through that process over and over. And I keep releasing. At some point, it got so clear. I drive a lot, so I was driving around, and I heard myself talking inside my heart space. I could hear myself talking to my spirit, and I said, "Can I just go ahead and forgive all of my judgments to everything? I forgive my words that discolored my world. I forgive my perceptions that altered my view and my experiences." And then I went into crazy gratitude. And all I heard was, "I love yous." But I would start with taking it apart and going through it one at a time. Take your issues, take your situations, take the people. And you might notice that it happens pretty quickly. Now, I will say with the take my anger at God, I would say define God. If you're angry at the God that they taught you about, that was the Yahweh God, that is not what he really is. I mean, get rid of your anger for sure. My anger switched from being directed at God to be directed at the Vatican for all the lies, all the writing over of the book. And leaving out tons of information. What are you noticing? What are you sensing? What are you seeing? What I have found is the more that I go through this and the more that I do it, the clearer and clearer and clearer it gets. So it's literally the peeling back of all the layers, taking the veil off the trueness of my spirit and who I am. It definitely undoes neuroplastic. If you're not judging yourself, changes who you are for sure.
Christy, can you explain how you adjust or not adjust? How do you deal with your perceiving of what the other person did? How are you processing that?
I just forgive myself for judging them. Anytime somebody does something, if I'm in a state other than peace, there's a judgment involved. Right? If I'm in any lower range of emotions, there is a judgment involved. They do something, they say something, they act a certain way, they dress a certain way, they look a certain way, like pick your poison. And you have something to say about it. It's a judgment. And it marks you. It puts a layer over your soul, over your spirit. If I am not judging anything and I am standing in pure peace, in the radiant opulence that is that I am, right? If I am there, I can't judge any of it. I'm just at peace. They can do or say or be or act or look like anything they want, and all I am is peace. And if I recognize I've judged things, right? So from my past and whatever, you've judged whatever you judged, it keeps kicking back into the system in the form of neuroplastic. So it keeps kicking back into your system anger and regret and shame and guilt and sadness and right, I'm no good and I can't do that. And I don't know, well, list all the stuff, right? There's so many things to it. And if you're not doing that, all of a sudden your neuroplastic changes. And it's actually like it's a connector. It's a connector to the spirit. You get a deeper connection. Your consciousness, what St. Germaine said, your consciousness raises. Did that answer your question? Say it again. Say your question one more time.
Well, or I guess, so is it true? Is it possible then that with every judgment, there's some lie that you're believing in that's
You can
not?
call it by whatever name you want to. Judgment, lie, curse. It comes out in many forms, right? If it's not truth, if it's not, and this is where truth can get subjective. This is an argument my older brother had with me for a long time. Truth is subjective. Your truth versus my truth. That's a perception. That's where perceptions come in, right? Your version of the truth differs from my version of the truth because we saw the thing from different angles. That's the idea of the Indians around the elephant. One person had the tail and thought it was a stick or a branch or whatever, and somebody else was holding onto the trunk thinking it was a snake. Same animal, what is the thing we're holding on to? I'm holding onto a stick. No, you're holding onto a snake. No, we're holding onto an elephant. Perception, right? Truth was different. I'm feeling this, so it's my truth. Does that make sense? So I think the truth itself, truth is your spirit form. Yes? That's what we're trying to get to. And you have to lift all these other layers off. If you know your truth and you can be in your truth, which means you are in your spirit, you're walking in your spirit, giddy up. You're there, man. I would take off running and never stop. But to get there, this is a process that can help remove the layers of judgment, the layers of lies. Does that make sense?
Can I add to that? Just to maybe see if I can you hear me, Christy?
Yes.
Okay. When I, in the past, have found myself like having a hard time letting go of these things, I would ask myself, what is it in me that's holding on to it so badly that I want that, my lie to be a truth, right? What is in me? And then I'd ask my spirit, and my spirit would totally guide me to what I had convinced myself of for so many years was such a truth that I was so not willing to see it any other way but that. So sometimes it's just letting your spirit teach you the different perceptions that you weren't given privy to, via whatever experiences, bringing up parents, like all this stuff, all that stuff. I feel like adds to those layers of truth, and it is what it is. We forgive them, right? But allow our spirits to be free by understanding and learning our own truths.
And you can do it that way. St. Germaine is saying, do this. And here's why he's saying it. We're cutting to the chase. If you want to sit and keep learning about your past and going through it, and I'm not saying what Shamina said was wrong or what Sue said. I mean, that is the deal, right? That is the stuff that happens. And I think what this is a new way of thinking about it. And I don't know that it's new or not. He just told it to me, so it's new to me. If you can just forgive yourself of your judgments of whatever, it will bump you exponentially into your consciousness. It will clear the layers of the veil so that you don't have to keep fighting with these things. But it's a true letting go of your judgments. I can no longer judge my brother for having his opinion about the way we handled my mother. Do I think it was okay? No. I thought it was horrifying. It was the worst thing anybody could ever do to another human being, in my opinion, not in his. My judgment, my issue, I have to get rid of it. Right? I use the word forgiveness because that's the word that I'm used to, and it's the word that St. Germaine gave me. I forgive my judgments against my brother. Then I drop it in my heart. And it literally, something opens up and it goes, and it just disappears. And then I'm left feeling like, oh, just lighter. But you can do any of the other things that were discussed. You absolutely can. I want to say, I think this is a way to cut the chase. All of the other stuff is correct. All the other stuff is a way to look at it. If you want to cut through it, and if you don't like the word forgiveness, let's find a different word. But it's the judgments we've made. It's all the, and if you want to call them lies, call them lies. If that works for you, right? I release all the lies that I have said against other people. However you want to say that. How was the other one? I forgive myself for all judgments. I release all the lies that I hold against you. However it comes out, however that works best for you. It cuts to the chase way quicker than chasing down the understanding of why we do some of these things. Awilda says, thanks, Christy. My veil is transparent. I can understand and feel forgiveness. My veil is transparent. We want to get the veil off. I love that it's transparent. Mine is still not transparent. Okay.
Christy,
Yes, ma'am.
can I just make a comment?
Yes, please.
I love this topic. I'm
You're
getting ready
awesome.
to visit family at Christmas. This is the perfect topic at the perfect time. So helpful.
Good.
And I'm understanding from St. Germaine that we are purifying and rarefying our thoughts, our words, our emotion, all these different layers that maybe have trapped some of the hard feelings or the judgments. And so one thing I really love about your work is we're using the words to just activate transmutation of the struggle. And then when we do the meditation that you're talking about through the heart space, and you had the visual with the whole, we're activating our visual perception. And so I think the opportunity is to rarefy and purify our language, our vision, and what we hear as we're trying to purify our whole body into light. And so we're working on all those layers. And sometimes it can be really powerful to include, like you mentioned earlier, the violet fire. St. Germaine himself says that is the most potent transmuting energy we have on the planet.
Yeah.
The violet fire. And it's the combination of the pink and the blue, which is the divine feminine, the divine masculine. So even using color can enhance the purification of all those levels, words, thoughts, vision, hearing.
Well, he did say to encircle whatever it is you're forgiving in that violet flame. So
Love that.
yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for that reminder. It just amplifies the quickening.
Yeah. And I just think, I mean, here's like where I'm at with some of this. And I love all of you deeply. And I just want to say that I want this finished. I want to ascend. I'm over the fight. I'm done with the craziness. I'm like, there has to be a way to move. And that is always my question, and always has been, to Yeshua, to St. Germaine, to my other guides, to other angels I've seen. So I'm like, how do you do this more effectively? Because what we have been doing is not effective. Make it more effective. If you can cut it straight to truth and you actually get to pure truth, right? So for me, that's an issue, because I have never known what truth is. My mother was so divisive. She could tell each one of us something different and have every single one of us believing that it was truth. And there was 4 of us. Well, there was 5 of us, including my dad. And none of us knew what was going on. So whatever works for you the best, if you have the concept, just follow through. You got it, right? If you've got the concept, just follow through. Here's the end game one more time. For when forgiveness has purified the mind and the heart and the emotion field of your own beingness, you will discover that you exist only to extend love. So that's what we keep coming back to, is how do I work to just extend love? I want to stay in that state. I have not managed it yet. Okay, anybody else? Questions, thoughts, concerns on that? And then we're going to move on to gravity. It'll get fun here in a second. Gravity cracks me up. This is so funny to me. Anything left on go ahead.
I think it's, for me, what just keeps coming up is the word boundless. The truth that we truly are boundless. There are no limits to us. And then when we put limitations on ourselves, we do these judgments, which are limitations. Everything binds us. When we curse, expects, have expectations, limitations, labels, it keeps going. Condemnations. We do any of that stuff, it creates binds, and then we are bound. I think that that just keeps resonating with me. Like, if we're having a hard time letting go of this, I think we're really having a hard time believing that we truly are boundless. So just because it is,
let go
like
of that judgment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So maybe drop that down first, and then work on the rest, because I totally agree with you. It is very simple. We don't need to be going through all of this and that and the other of processes, but if we have these limits, we're creating them, I think, just by that.
And it's by judgment. You're judging something on yourself. If you quit judging yourself, your inner world gets so quiet and still.
Amen.
It is the weirdest feeling. And I get quiet and still. I thought I was, but since I have put myself through this a few times, oh my goodness, the quietness is just, I don't even have a word for it. It's amazing. But if I'm not judging myself, who's talking to me? Right. And it also, so, I mean, it makes your hearing clearer to your spirit, because now I'm not yammering over my spirit, judging everything. I don't know. I agree. Thank you. I hope this helps. I do. I really hope this helps. Okay. Gravity. There's a song called Gravity that I absolutely love. Gravity's interesting. Gravity is, was it Albert Einstein who found gravity? Gravity is the thing that we were taught, that the apple falls from the tree and that's gravity, right? The earth has some kind of magnetic pull that holds everything. Newton. Yep, thank you. So, the story went, he was sitting under a tree, an apple fell, and then he was like, oh, there's some kind of pull to the earth, and that was called gravity. And there's more to it than that, but that was kind of the gist of it. The question is, do you believe gravity is real, or is it another lie we were told? Is it real, or is it a lie? And if you haven't looked into this, it will blow your mind when you start looking into it. You'll be like, and it'll take you down all kinds of rabbit holes. Who says lie? Instantly, lie. And I agree with it. I do think it's another thing that they told us to keep us confused. Kind of like forgiveness. They told you whatever they told you to keep you confused and always working, and just such an arduous journey to get to the end. But the end is really near, and it's easy if you understand how it really works. And so I started watching videos on gravity and the reality. One of the things I think I typed in was, is gravity real? And then you start finding all these videos and you just start watching them. One of the things I saw was a guy talking about density. So if gravity's not real, what is all this stuff? And what his thought was that the density of the apple falling out of the tree is heavier than the density of the surrounding environment of the air around it. So it fell through the air, right? One of the things he proposed was, what would have happened if he had been sitting under the tree and the apple fell, but there was a water barrel and the apple fell into the water barrel instead of falling to the ground? The apple would have floated on the water, right? So the density of the apple is less than the density of the amount of water and would have been floating on the water. So he's like, it would have changed the whole story. What would they have called it then? What would they have been teaching us then? But if you understood everything is the density, right? What density is the air? What density is the water? What density is the thing that's falling? What density are you, right? In form and matter. I think I've talked about this before. Let me come back to this. Okay. From a belief system standpoint, like try and follow me through this. This can get kind of muddy. From a belief system standpoint, we were told to believe this narrative about gravity, and nobody really questioned it. But then we watched birds fly and we were like, why can they get off the ground? And then they told you it was their feathers, it was their wings, it was the angle, it was this, it was that, it was the other thing, right? Blah, 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 blah. But birds don't have a belief system that they have to fight through, right? So then the airplane idea, the airplane it defies gravity, it gets off the ground. And again, it's the fuel, it's the angle of trajectory, it's the water, it's the, I forget what all I wrote down. Whatever gets an airplane, right? The little wing thing. So it's the tilt of the whatever, the rotors or whatever they're called, right? And so the airplane gets off there. It's all the stuff they told you. But on the other side of the planet, the water, if the planet is round, which is another rabbit hole, the water is held to the earth by gravity, right? None of this makes any sense. Rocks are held to the ground by gravity, right? So you sit there and you start questioning all this stuff. So then, segue over onto the other side again. There's a science experiment. And this is what I think I've talked about before in different regards, but it made sense here. And when it got pointed at, I was like, oh, wow. The science experiment went something like this. They had DNA, they had a strand of DNA, and they put it in an atmosphere-controlled vessel. It was a clear glass thing. And I've heard Greg Braden mention it. I've heard Lipton mention it. I've heard a few different people mention the same experiment. What they were originally experimenting on, I do not remember. But what happened was they were watching the DNA and feeding it information to see what it would do. And it would float up or it would float down or it would float to one side or the other of the vessel or whatever, if it could move over or whatever. It never did anything. So the scientist got mad. One of the scientists doing this got angry. And whatever his anger was, he projected it on the DNA. Guess what the DNA did? Right? DNA is a spiral line of, right? It twisted and collapsed. It created matter. Negative neural information from this scientist outside of the vessel projected onto this DNA and it went and collapsed and it created matter. It got heavy, right? It got weighty. So people say this to me all the time. I feel heavy, I'm weighted down, right? I can't move. I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm stressed, I'm this, and it's all the negative neural information in the system, and your DNA is all knotted up. So we go through a process and get you all light, and the DNA opens and expands. So the guy got mad at the DNA, yelled at it, it collapsed, and another scientist kind of caught on to what was going on, and he goes, now throw love at it, like project love to it, project happiness to it, and see what it does. And sure enough, they started projecting, right? Love, happiness, whatever it was. And the DNA literally uncurled and opened. So it became a light vessel, right? And people will literally tell me, I feel light, I feel floaty, I feel airy, I feel expanded, right? All of those kind of things. Back to gravity. If you could bypass the belief system that gravity is whatever they told us. And you said, okay, there is no gravity. It's a density issue. And I am dense because I am full of negative neural information. I am heavy and weighty because of all this neural information. And I get into my conscious state. I get into my coherent state. And I blow everything open. And I get that light, weightless feeling. And then I'm like, well, then, so you get there. Now, how do I get off the ground? And what I heard was, what do the birds do? They lean forward. What does the helicopter do? It leans forward. What does the airplane do? Right? It moves forward. And I was like, I have not been able to do it yet. I'll lie to you. But I have felt like I have moved something that has caused an interaction with my desire to levitate. If you are defying gravity because there isn't gravity, and I can transform this body into its lighter self, into a more open version, right, where it's less density because of the less neural, right? I get rid of all my judgments. This goes hand in hand, right? I get rid of all my judgments. I get rid of all the lies. I get rid of all the stuff, and I transform everything into a more light body. And then I get the tilt. And you take off. I don't know, play with it. I have not gotten it that far yet, but it definitely makes you feel different. One of the things I did throw into it, because the Merkaba is supposedly a flying machine that we use, right, when we're when we're ascending. And it depends on the teaching on this one, but the Merkaba is actually a torsion field, right? So one of the pyramids twists one way, the other pyramid twists the other way. So they're spinning opposite directions. It's the same torsion field that I see inside the body when I'm watching somebody, from their crown to their root and through all the chakras, everything connects, interconnects into it. And one direction spinning one way and the other direction spinning the other way. It's a torsion field. And then all of the toroidal fields turn on and I get even lighter. Like it just goes and goes and goes. I asked to add all sacred geometry and the, there's one other one I asked for. And then any other fields I don't know or understand. I'm like, anything I need to make this thing shift, turn it on in my system. And I'm telling my spirit this. I'm like, we're going to levitate. Like, I'm going to get this body off the ground. And I'm just saying, something weird happened. But I mean, I asked, right? So I just expect when I asked, it's going to happen the way. Play with it. That's all I can say. If we have to, or if we're going to levitate, we're going to manifest the ability to levitate. I think it's going to happen regardless because of the time period we're moving into. You will ascend if you're working on this project. I think everybody's going to go through some kind of ascension just because the earth is changing. And as it changes and everything keeps moving forward, we're going to change too. But I think if we want to fly around before that happens, we've got to figure this out. Any thoughts on that? Let's see. Sue says we live in an electromagnetic earth. Yes. Magnetic from earth and electric from ether. Our bodies use both. Planes, birds fly by, pressure difference. Top of wings. That's what they told you. That's what they told you. Yes. I suggest he affected the DNA with his magnetic field. Possibly, but your emotions, we affect each other all the time by our emotions. And the message is sent through your electromagnetic field. Right? You can't do one with, or you don't do one without the other. I think it's all part of the same thing. And if he hadn't, so they had been standing there forever and his magnetic field was with him because they were doing whatever other experiments. The DNA didn't do anything until he got angry and he sent a message. And that's when it coiled up. What do you think?
Well, the one thing I can tell you, again, because of my science background with the engineering and all that, and of course the Newtonian stuff, we know it's all just crap. Well, the thing, even back when I was in physics class, though, I can definitely tell you, there's not a single scientist on God's green earth, there's none of them. They all know that they don't know where gravity comes from. And I learned that in my physics in college. And then I got in an argument with one of my engineering colleagues, some years ago. And I said, no, I'm telling you, they do not know where it comes from. And so I called up my physics professor on the phone and said, I just want you to tell my colleague that we don't. He's like, yes, Suzanne, you're actually right. We don't know where gravity comes from. They don't know. And the reason why they don't know is because it's something they made up. They put a label on something that they observed, and they came to an incorrect perception, same as the judgments. They made the wrong judgment because they did not judge from a place of truth.
Well, and I go back to sometimes truth can be tricky. I really think it can be, because some people will say their truth is the only truth. And if you see it a different way, that's when so you have to get to like what is, and spirit is truth, right? So I don't know, semantics on all that stuff, but I agree with you. They don't know. It's just like listening to the pilots talk about how they never see the curvature of the earth. That's a bizarre one. It's like, okay, flat earthers. Now what? I don't know. I mean, and I do know. I think it's all lies. I think everything they told us is crap. I came up the other day on some channel. I was talking to some guy, and he goes, well, how do you know? Like, how do you know what's not crap? And I think what I basically told him was, I think it's all crap because they said it. And they don't want you to know the truth. They don't want you to get to what's real. So I take everything with a grain of salt at this point, and then I ask my spirit, and then I go from there. I go back into the heart. I think it's the best way to do it. Yep, it's all crap. Which means you can meditate. You can probably do all kinds of stuff you have not quite figured out yet. We're in the process of figuring it out. How do we get ourselves there? You keep playing with it. You got to keep going against the status quo. You got to keep, right?
Okay, here's something to play with, Christy. Cliff High was saying, and he was talking about the UFOs and how they do the anti-gravity, whatever you want to call it. But basically, he was saying a couple things to know. One, they were using this orb of copper in between these two horn things. All that was on there. And then the other thing was, he was saying they were just changing the charge or something from the ether, which makes sense to me. That's electrical, right? And if you can go through your 0 point energy, so maybe when they looked at the DNA, before they were there, yes, but nobody was focusing anything per se. But when he got angry, that created a focus at a 0 point energy. Doesn't matter if it's positive or negative, but that's what happened. And then that's why they got the effect at that moment.
Possibly, like literally play with it. You have to sit there and, I mean, that's the whole thing with Dr. William Bengston. He could get angry and sit there shaking and yelling at something and cause it to heal. And he was like, all of you people are crazy that think you're healers, because you can, he's like, I do it all the time. Wait a minute. So I don't know. It's perception, it's belief. Like he believed he could heal anything, and he did. But he would do it in a fit of anger. Or he could do it in a fit of anger. I don't know that he always did. His name's Bill Bengston, William Bengston. Absolutely amazing. This guy would give mice cancer and then heal them of their cancer to prove he could. Just by sitting there like this an hour a day with his hands around the mouse. And he used to charge cotton. He figured out he could charge cotton by getting really angry and shaking it and yelling at it. And then he would put that on the mouse, and that would heal the mouse. Bizarre. William Bengston. He was one of my first goes in the energy world, I think, as far as like trying to learn from somebody. Very interesting person. Yeah, I don't know. 0 point energy, play with it. How do you find it? How do you get to the center of it? I don't know. I think I hit something when I was playing with it earlier today. There was something that wasn't the same. I think if you translate into light, you're closer to 0 point energy. If all of your DNA is open and moving light, I think you have to be closer to that place from a human standpoint, right? From a physical standpoint.
I remember this from way back. I don't know how I figured this out or knew this, but this was like many, many, many years ago. But that our blood is congealed light.
Mm-hmm.
And even back then, I had no idea.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, I came to it way from the outside. I was going, hey, that would mean that blood is congealed light. So that's what that is. But so I don't know what, but yeah, I think it connects into all this about, I mean, if we have, it's like Shamina was saying, if we have full control of this piece of real estate, then we do. That means, like you said, I've changed my tests before when they were doing tests and stuff, and you could sit there and play with it. That's what Wim Hof is doing.
Mm-hmm.
He's fiddling with his real estate.
I think that's what all of us are doing, whether you think you are or think you're not, right? Even on the negative end of it, that is exactly what you're doing, is playing with your real estate. It causes negative effects because you don't know what you're doing, right? From a lack of understanding the idea of not judging to not knowing heart coherence, right? Your system changes once you start doing those things. And I think that's part of the being able to handle it and control it. I just want more faster. I want it all now. Little at a time, here we go. That's why we keep sharing and keep persisting. I think there's definitely more than this. I think we're starting to just very, very slowly move some of the stuff that was lied about and understand it in a different way so we can actually get through the system. They say this golden age that we're in, right? It started in 2012, and it's supposed to go on for 2,000 years. Holy cow. Like, we're just at the very beginning of this. And we're already getting so much open information from source, from where we came from. It just blows my mind. I'm like, okay, yeah, there's hope for me. Me too. 2,000 years. How many times can you come back and redo this? And I keep trying to tell myself, okay, this time when I go from this plane, if I have to come back here again, I want to remember all of this so I can start from this space and not from, right? Have to go through the struggle again. I don't know. All right, well, that's all I've got for today. What time are we at? We're doing pretty good. Questions, thoughts, ideas? What else do you have? Anybody have anything else they want to share? I feel lighter when I forgive. Yes. Yep. I felt lighter when I forgive myself of my judgments. That one blew my mind. It seriously did. I was just like, oh, wow. You can say the word forgive all you want. This is really funny. So I got this understanding too. You can use the word forgive all you want. Like, I forgive my brother. I forgive whatever he did. I forgive all these things. But the word itself, because they defined it wrongly, stops the action of the law of forgiveness. Totally stops the action because it wasn't defined correctly. But when you understand it and you're like, okay, what am I forgiving? I'm forgiving all my judgments. All of a sudden it's different. It's like understanding repentance. It's not even the same concept that they taught us. It has nothing to do with any of that. It's crazy.
So Christy, going back to what Charles had said earlier, and this is really funny because when he said it, I was like going, oh no, I get the answer to that. And then went back around when we did the exercise. And then I have some stuff trapped that like, I'm like really pissed off at this person about something. And I'm just like going, and it's like, and my body's not letting go of it. And I'm like, well, this is interesting. And so if somebody, I guess Charles's question was, if I understood him correctly, like when you are perceiving someone as doing something with a direct intent to harm you, how is, like there's got to be maybe a difference there or something like,
Are you ready?
Yeah.
In your field somewhere, there has been a vibration that drew those people into your life to do the thing they did. So it would cause you to go, how do I get back to love? And if I'm perceiving whatever they did as this harmful, malicious, whatever it was, my judgment on them is that they are harmful and malicious, or like word it however you want to word it. Can I get rid of that judgment and live through the trial? Can I stay in peace through whatever they throw at me? Because if you can, you will quicker get back to the place where you only exist to extend love instead of your upsettedness, your fear, your anger, your judgment, right? All of those things. Because the second we go into those, we're back into that lower vibrational space. And if I had known this before I turned 30, I would have done way better in my life, but I did not know, right? So you didn't know. So you watch these people commit the atrocities they committed against you. And that's how we looked at it, right? And I made my judgment and I said the things I said and I did the things I did. And they did the same thing. They did what they did and said what they said. But if you had remained in peace, I mean, put yourself there for a second. Pick a person that you've worked on forgiving, somewhere where you're having trouble with this. Put yourself in that place where you can feel the struggle. You can feel. And then set that aside, gently set that aside. You can pick it back up here in a minute. Set it aside for just a second. And bring yourself into a state of coherence, into a state of peace. At that age, at that time, it's one of the amazing gifts we have as humans. Imagine yourself in a state of peace and them doing whatever they're doing, and watch how it changes the effect. My guess would have to have been, if I had known how to do this and I could hold a state of peace, I could be in a neutral place, none of the things that were going on in my life would have affected me and left the scars that they did. And some of the stuff would have never happened to start with, because my peace would have pervaded all of that and it would have stopped the action of some of it. The story about them. Yep. It's not a story about them. It's a story about how you drew them into your life. And then, like, if the learning becomes, how do I get back to love? How do I exist to only extend love? Yeah, they're pointers. That's exactly what it is. It's like they're, and I'll use the word God, even though I don't like that word. It's like God standing next to you. As these people going, okay, this is what's going to happen. Can you maintain? Can you maintain yourself in peace? Can you extend love even though this whole concept of, I think it was Yeshua was talking, turn the other cheek. What did that mean? And we were literally taught, if somebody slaps you on the cheek, turn the other cheek and let them slap you again. And everybody was like, why would you do that? Like, it makes sense. What does it mean to turn the other cheek? Do you have any idea? If this situation, whatever your situation is God standing in front of you going, hey, here we go. Can you maintain? I'm going to shake you up. I'm going to show you. We're going to get you back to love, because that's what you really came here for, was to find your way back to love. Right? You take the slap. Do you turn the other cheek and let it happen again? No, you go back to peace. You maintain your peace. You come back to love. And you stay in that state. The next slap can't touch you. I turn the other cheek. You'll never touch it. Right? Because there's a vibrational difference. Now I'm in love instead of the tug of war. And you can go back through, you can literally do this. You can go back through some of these situations, get into your coherent state, get into your state of peace, and then replay the situation. Give yourself a new outcome to start with. Because every time you replay the old outcome, you're just building more onto it. Right? The neuroplastic gets deeper, the neural grooves, right? You're refining that pathway back to that past. You want to work your way out of it, tell a new story to it. Tell a totally different story. I even drop it out of the story. There's some stories, because I've done this work so hard with the getting rid of the judgments, I can't even come up with half of the story anymore. And I have no desire to even tell it. In places where I would have inserted the story, I'm just like, well, how else do I talk about this? Because now I don't want the story in there. I don't want to repeat the story anymore.
So Christy, that is the perfect question. How else do you talk about it? That's what keeps going through my mind. Like, you know, when people ask you like, oh, tell me about you, tell me about your past, like, you know, all this stuff. And I'm like, I really don't want to say anything, because it is exactly that. It's in the past. It's said, it's done. It's not me. It's, you know, but what do you do?
Talk through spirit. I get coherent and I let spirit speak. I am that spirit, right? I am that. So I let spirit do the talking. You'll find a way to talk about whatever you need to talk about. From a state of love, from a state of peace, it changes your language. It changes. And if I don't have words, I'll literally just smile and I don't have any words. And I'm okay with that. Like, I am totally okay listening to you. I don't have any words. Go ahead.
So it's kind of interesting on the vibration, on the part that in the beginning it's hard for me to accept about, oh, somehow I attracted, right? And then the other part is to go, yeah, when you start thinking about, well, do I deserve this, right? Oh, maybe it's karma. So it's all this story around it. So I recently, I think a week ago or something, realized the consequences of me holding into all this negative energy, whatever the past is, right? And it's holding me back from moving forward. Because I look, I go, hey, I'm a smart guy. I have all this resource. How come I'm not moving forward? And I find out that, oh, because I have all this fear, my subconscious literally holding me back from moving forward, because it's saying like, oh, what if I made a mistake again, right? What if I attract this kind of people? What if I introduce people to an investment and it turned out to be a scam? You know, I don't want to be responsible for that. And all this thing, and I realized, I go, no wonder I don't want client, no wonder I don't market, no wonder I sabotage myself and do the work necessary to move forward. And then until somebody pointed out, I go, Charles, you know, you go through all this because all those are lessons for you, so you can learn, so you can be smarter, so you can go to a high level. So instead of condemning it, you have to appreciate it and look at it. Hey, these are your lesson, and take them, what you call the negative energy or the way I look at it of condemnation, and be grateful and just, hey, I appreciate for all my experiences. Because I start looking, I go, okay, what does people value most? I mean, value wisdom, right? Well, where do I get wisdom? Wisdom, I get it from going through life experience and going to learning, right? Well, the life experience is a mixture of bad experience and good experience. You can't just neglect, one or another. It's a combination. So if that's the case, then you should appreciate all that because it gives you the wisdom you have right now. And so instead of condemn it.
I think to some degree, and I agree with a lot of what you said,
Mhm.
but I think at some point you start to understand your wisdom doesn't come from your life experiences. It's almost like it's a false wisdom,
Mhm.
right? Because it just teaches you what you've already learned. Wisdom actually comes from knowledge, you could say, comes from your life experiences. Wisdom comes from spirit,
Mhm.
right? So there's kind of levels to learning. But I think when you sit and you ask, so like situations coming up and all these things happening, I ask my spirit first, do I need to go there? Hey, spirit, do I need to go do this? Hey, spirit, do I need to read that? Hey, spirit, do I need to watch this? Hey, spirit. And sometimes spirit pulls me and says, get this, go read this again, right? Go look at this movie, go watch this or read this book. Spirit literally, so the more you keep going into your heart space, those circumstances that you're talking about, where you're gaining knowledge of how things work around you, will translate to wisdom when you go into your heart and ask your spirit. And I don't even play any of those games anymore. If I have something show up that I'm like, I don't want that in my field, I literally just run it through the ladder of awareness. I take it from my brain, put it in my heart. I get everything coherent to that subject.
Okay.
And if I'm in a state of coherence, that alters that whole reality. Right? I have a good friend of mine always telling me, you're here to learn a lesson. If you learn your lesson, you could ascend. You could go. I think the only thing you're here to learn is how to get back to love. All the time. I am not good at it. I am not good at it.
Well, I know that all through this experience, I totally agree with you on the part about being in alignment with spirit. I mean, that's like the number one things that I seen that all this year is I'm getting more and more alignment, and you're right, it's about love. I mean, I learned about so many level of love layer now, whereas before, I thought I was loving, but I wasn't. So it's all peeling all this layer so you can feel more love, and so you can see things better, so you can have all this unconditional. So
Yeah. And understand too, I mean, there's another way to kind of look at this, and it's a little bit tough to grasp, but there's two different kinds of emotions. You have two different sets of emotions in play. And one you might never feel your whole lifetime. One you might never come in contact with. The other is the human taught emotions, right? It's how your mother taught you to be scared of something, or your father taught you how to, be sad over something, or how you're taught all of those emotions. You're taught what love is, right? We're taught that stuff. And there's so many different kinds of love for one single word. It's kind of crazy. The other set of emotions have the same names because we don't have other ways to describe them, to word them. So the language is the same. It's peace, it's joy, it's love, but they come from spirit. So it's a higher level value of emotion when it comes out of your spirit self than when it's your brain or your learning, right? Your knowledge base that's giving you the emotion, right? So engaging in those higher emotions, right? They always say love and above, right? There's a scale of emotions. But if you're participating on a human level, you've missed some of the bang of getting there. Participate at a spirit level. Peace is not the same from spirit than it is the way humans produce peace. How do you produce peace? You end a war. That is not your spirit's type of peace. Spirit's peace is quiet. Spirit's peace is, right? They call it the peace that passes all understanding. It's just unfathomable. It's ununderstandable. And it just moves you. It moves you to do things differently. Love is the same thing, right? What is human love? Right? It can be love for a hot dog. It can be love for your father. It can be sex. It can be, right? There's all these different ways, and we say it's love. What is love from spirit? And even the word unconditional, it does not mean the same when you move into spirit form. The unconditionalness is so lacking judgment, so lacking. I don't know, it's hard to even touch. It's hard to describe. But that's the emotional set that you want to move yourself into. And if you can remain there, everything else changes. Suzanne's saying when you get to a place when you can't fully describe the experience, you know it's coming from spirit. Yeah. Yeah, I have no words usually. I'm just like, until words get put in my mouth, and then I'm just speaking whatever I'm told. Sherry says this is a realm of duality. Learning is accelerated in the space of opposition. It's a gift to experience contrast in this realm of light and dark. You have a great outlook on that one. It's a gift. Okay. Right? I mean, it's perception at that level. And you're right. If you could look at it like it's a gift and you can stay there, you do way better than if you're in the trenches trying to fight through it. Yeah. All right. Anybody else? Questions, ideas, thoughts, concerns? I would go back through some of the issues, Charles, and specifically to you. I would go back through some of the specific issues. And you had mentioned your family with them from a state to go into your heart and talk to your spirit. I need to be in a state of love. Show me, ask your spirit, show me what true love feels like. Show me what this unconditional love from a spirit state, show me what that feels like. And then sit there and just let it overwhelm you. And then go into your brain and walk yourself through the family stuff. But don't leave the state of love. Right? That's the key to all of this is once you get into state, don't leave it and then go back through the issues. Because you'll take that vibration into those issues with you and it'll start to change some of it. And while it won't change the past, it will change your outlook on and your perception about what you're doing now and how all this can be handled. And I will say this too, because this has popped through my mind a few times. Ongoing situations are tough. If it's a situation that is ongoing and it's just like has been up in your face for years, right? To drop the judgment card. Oh my goodness, it is so tough. The easiest thing I have ever found is to take that judgment. And I don't even know what the judgment necessarily all was because there was so much of it. I literally just said, I forgive myself. I forgive myself of all judgments that I held against you. And then I said the person's name. I dropped it into my heart and it was gone. Just like that. Just like that. And I think that's receiving. Did we talk about faith in here today? What is faith? The ability to receive. Did we talk about that? Faith is the ability to receive. And I received, right? I received the freedom from the judgments being gone. The instant I felt it, I was just like, oh, that's mine. Received it, right? Faith in action. And take a deep breath. I hope that helps. And I really hope one of you learns how to levitate before I do. I really hope that happens. Go ahead, Jill.
Yeah, I just want to add something to what Sherry was saying as well. And it kind of ties back into what Shamina was talking about as well. I was just kind of processing and writing and what came up for me is, you know, I could sit in this basically I can see the denseness that has been created in my life from all of the judgment in the family and stuff that I came from. So I've decided to take that in the stance, in the belief that I needed that much. If I was going to cover myself, if I was going to hide myself from myself, and if I was going to hide my love because it's so vast, then it had to be that opposite, right? Like if I was going to do that, which apparently I did, it had to be that dense, that dark, that judgmental. So that's my stance on that.
Yeah. Yeah, just don't keep it.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
No.
just don't keep it. Now that you see it, don't keep it.
It's just motivation, right? And so then I can see it as a gift.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. That's good. Yeah. Take another deep breath. Beautifully said. All right. Well, I'm just going to thank you all for your contributions. Thank you for every word, every beautiful thing. I think it just helps promote the whole concept, right? We're supposed to be moving into a golden age. I actually had a dream last night where I don't know where all this gold came from, but it was all this kind of pillowy looking gold, kind of bar looking things. And I had enough of them in my possession to build a throne. And so I was sitting, it was a chair made out of these gold bricks. I'm sitting on that chair, and the vibration of the gold itself was so incredibly powerful that it did something to my inner system. It healed something, it changed something. I'm not sure what exactly. And I mean, literally changed something. I woke up this morning not feeling the same. And then I saw myself later, like during the day, I turned it into a bed at some point. It was all flat and I was laying on it, just like receiving the vibration of it. So a cold seat of consciousness. I would have to say when stuff like that shows up, participate with it. Sit on it, lay on it, right? Let it do its vibratory work, because I would never be in contact with that much gold that I know of. Maybe I'm wrong. Gold can be used to levitate, and there we go. It's part of the whole thing, right? But use the vibration of it. It's incredible. Don't set these things aside when you actually get the message or get an idea like that. I keep going back to it because I've been standing on it. I've been doing all kinds of different stuff on it today. It can be used to levitate. I have to go into that one more. Maybe that's why it showed up, because I get to levitate soon. All right. Anything else? Well, I just want to bless you all then. Thank you so much for being here. And we will be levitating and seeing each other soon.
Woohoo!
Yes.
Thank you.
Christy.
Thank you. That was amazing.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night. Yeah, I want a heart on mine. Dun, dun, dun.